Yo, what is good, everybody? Joey from Heart Pirates TCG here, and I still don't really have a lot of my setup. I don't have any of my stuff for my moves, so I'm gonna be making like weird format videos. I'm gonna be recording this on my phone, and then I'm gonna be kind of having some or playing this in the background of the actual footage that I want to show you. But rate my setup though, guys, real quick. Rate my setup. What do you guys give it a 1 through 10 in the comments. All I think I'm missing is one of those things like you drip feed hamsters with. And then probably like one of those like pocket pussies you kind of tape under the wall while you're playing, or under the desk while you're playing RuneScape. And I think I'd have probably like the best setup, like a 10 out of 10. So right now I probably have like a 9 out of 10, but let me know in the comments. Anyway, the first band leader that we have is Laboon. Or I'm sorry, not leader, character is Laboon. And no, I'm just playing, guys. I'm playing, guys. So yeah, Laboon, for those guys who are on my Discord, you guys will know that I have a black yellow Luffy deck coming out that plays Laboon in it, and it's actually kind of gas, bro. It's actually pretty gas, so stay tuned for that if you guys are interested. But seriously, the first leader that I think will be banned is going to be Red Sanji. So for those of you guys who don't know what Red Sanji does, Red Sanji is a 5-life leader that is red, that gives every non-on-play character rush, right? So not on play. So things that have on play cannot get rushed. Something like Ace or Marco or Ein from OP07. So those cards do not have rush and they're not able to get rush, but everything else can. So things like Chaka, things like Pell, things like OP01 Brook, things like Thatch, things like any vanilla, an 8-10 vanilla, like everything has rush in addition to red having a bunch of rush cards. So you can still use Kid and Killer, you can still use rush Luffy, you know, things like that. But I mean, wow, like it's just gonna be really good. So here's the first reason why I think this leader will possibly be banned, and I give it about a 30% chance to be banned. So that's my percentage point, right? So 30% chance out of 100% that it will be banned in the future. And this comes out during, I believe, early set 9, so we'll see just how it goes. But the first reason it should be banned is it gatekeeps every single slow deck. I don't believe Sanji, or I'm sorry, I don't believe Sakazuki would be remotely as good as it was if Sanji was out during that time. Because for those of you guys who don't know, Whitebeard was actually a huge problem for Sakazuki. I wouldn't say a huge problem, but it was definitely, I believe, favored for Whitebeard into Sakazuki, because all of your characters pretty much had rush, right? You played Zoro, you played Luffy, you played Ace, and then once you already got your value from those characters, if they removed them, it didn't matter because they couldn't end the game before you could end the game, and then that's how they would end up winning. So now imagine that, but now just imagine every single character has rush, and the characters that normally have rush still have rush. On top of if you remove those characters, well, they already got their value. They already attacked for multiple, time. I was going off on like a tangent, and then I realized I was probably not saying the right words. So let me back up real quick. So the second reason I think that this deck will be banned is because not only does it gatekeep every single slow deck, right? So it gatekeeps things like, it'll probably gatekeep Katakuri. It'll probably gatekeep things like Pudding, King. It'll probably gatekeep things like Sakazuki. It'll gatekeep things like maybe even Anel, because Anel loses to aggro as well. So it'll gatekeep a lot of things like that, but also it's difficult for fair future card design. So any anything that has no on play, but like a when attacking or like activate main effect that is a red card has a high likelihood to be abused by Sanji in the future, on top of it having rush, which is just absolutely insane. So like they're gonna have a really hard time like balancing cards in the future that are red, because Sanji's just going to like absolutely abuse them if they don't have a on-play effect. So of course you can just be like, well, you can just print the card with an on-play effect, but on-play effects are a little bit dangerous because a lot of times they're really good because they already get the value from the cards whenever, or they get the value from the effect whenever you play it. So you don't want too many on-play effects because it would be just too good, especially it's too early in the game for it to be too good. So I think there's a huge common point with a lot of these cards that I think will be banned or can possibly be banned in the future, because a lot of them make it really difficult for card design in the future. And that's part of the reason why I think Sakazuki actually got banned too, because Sakazuki made it really hard to actually balance black and blue cards to be printed in the future, because obviously Sakazuki can just steamroll people with them if they are good removal cards or good cost reduction cards, which is the identity of blue and black. So I think for the future of card design, I don't think Sanji is a very fair leader, and it'll limit the amount of creativity and the amount of good support they can release for other decks, because Sanji will just make them way better than they should, unless they leader lock things, which I do think is a future. There's a Small Hat Crew video coming out pretty soon, and we talk a little bit about that. The next mechanic I want to talk about, or the next reason why I think it'll be banned, is because it's because Rush is a little bit too difficult to actually balance, right? So like, the thing about Rush, guys, is only the characters with Rush have Rush, right? Like nothing else can attack the turn it's played. So if you're just constantly like building up a board and just attacking every single turn, you're gonna die really quickly, right? You're going to lose a lot of life very fast. And the thing is, because he can play a lot of vanillas. Vanilla characters have really good stats: 5-7, 4-6, 6-8. You're not really killing them by battle. So like, of course, people are going to be like, well, you can just attack into the characters that they play and starve them out of resources, and eventually they'll die, which I disagree with, because the thing is, these characters are too highly statted to actually attack into efficiently. So if they play a 5-7 vanilla, how often are you going to be able to easily contest a 7k character? It's not very often. Even if you have to resort to removal, which, 3,000 Worlds, Gravity Blade, Raging Tiger, anything black does like Gecko Moria, it still requires a lot of resources, and the characters already got their value. So while you're trying to set up your cost reduction and set up your removal, they're just punching into you for like, 7k, 8k, 9k every single turn, and you're just gonna run out of time to be able to remove them in an efficient way. And even if you do remove all of their characters, they're still just gonna keep punching into you, because every card they draw in their deck is gonna be a Rush character, and they're just gonna kill you before you can kill them. And my last reason kind of ties into that with this leader is it's a 5-life leader, so you're gonna die before him. And he has access to Guard Point and Radical Beam to protect his characters from dying by battle. So the second one of his characters sticks, that character is attacking the next turn on top of whatever big character that he has. There's an 8-cost 10k Shanks. There's like, a 7-9, vanilla, I think Luffy or something like that, or a Yasop or something like that. There's a lot of like good vanilla stat characters that you just like literally cannot like block. You can't get out of it. It's like Rush Luffy every single turn. It's really difficult. So I think for that reason, he has a 30% ban rate, 30% ban chance in the future to be hit. And personally, if it were up to me, I think this leader should be banned probably after its first set, because I think this deck will be super cancerous for any slow deck in the entire game. So let's go to the next card. Leader number 2 is going to be Red Purple Law. So Red Purple Law needs no introduction. Funny enough, I don't believe Red Purple Law in OPO7 is actually the best deck. I think it is one of the best decks, but in OPO8, I highly suggest this leader gets banned, and I think there's a 70% chance that it does get banned, because it no longer has any drawbacks. The first thing we're going to talk about is it no longer has any drawbacks to its leader effect, right? It's supposed to be Dawn -3, which is a heavy cost, right? Zephyr is a Dawn -4, and it KOs a 3 cost or less. Law is a Dawn -3, and it bottom decks a 3,000 power or less. And while, getting them to that power threshold is a little bit difficult sometimes, they actually don't use any Dawn to do it, right? So, with Kid from set 5, the blocker Kid, and now Pudding in set 8 on top of Black Maria, on top of just, a bunch of ramp that they have too, with Bon Clay, Sachi and Penguin, Ein, Black Maria, all of these cards, they don't pay anything to bottom deck your characters, and they have way too much access to draw power with Miss All Sunday, with Queen, with Reiju, and it just makes the deck insanely consistent and powerful. Even if it's not consistent in terms of its draw power, it still is able to kill you before you can even really respond to it sometimes, because it floods the board so much. And the second thing we're going to talk about is it's too good at both removing and at rushing you down, right? And being aggressive. So the thing is, like, Sakazuki was a little bit different, Gecko Moria, Lucci, because while they can remove your stuff, it does take a little bit of time, right? You have to play your brand new, then you have to play Kuzan, then, you know, normally like on your 6th Dawn turn, that's when you remove your first thing, right? Maybe you don't even remove something then, but then you play like Gecko on your 8th Dawn turn. Well, Law, starting turn 2 is removing 1 thing per turn, and it's developing 2 bodies per turn. So it could be like Promo Law as well as Sachi and Penguin. It could be, you know, Kid plus Gordon plus Reiju. It could be, you know, Kid, you know, plus Bond Clay. It could be, you know, they're just constantly playing characters and removing yours. So it's like you just don't have anything on the board to contest what they have, and you better use all of the removal in your hand to remove the characters that they're playing from their hand basically for free. And then not only that, but you have to also find a way to lethal them after you remove all of their characters, and hope they don't have any draw power with Queen or Reiju to get cards in their hand to do it over and over and over again. So with that being said, the last a couple other things too is it gatekeeps a bunch of other decks. Oops, sorry about that, guys. It gatekeeps a bunch of other decks, and it's a huge issue because like almost no deck in set 8 can actually compete except for Law, because all of them lose to aggro. Look at Marco, look at Pudding, look at King. All of them lose to aggro. So, you know, Law existing and being so consistent at doing what it does, it just prevents almost every slow deck and prevents a bunch of future decks from even being able to shine. And that's obviously a huge issue, because that's exactly what they did with Sakazuki in set 7, is they banned Sakazuki before set 7 so they can see Bonnie, Lucci, and all these other decks, Doflamingo, shine. So I think there's a 70 to maybe even 80% chance that Law is banned for us in set 8, but it'll definitely be banned in the future. I think there's a 100% chance of that. And then the last thing that I will talk about for this leader in particular is hurting card design in the future. Every leader that we talk about hurts card design in some way, and if you guys don't want to do a rotation, which I highly recommend a rotation, then this is what we do with these characters and leaders that are too insanely powerful and too good at what they do, because they make a bunch of decks just very unfair because they abuse them. So having a leader that is, especially a multicolored leader, makes it hard to balance not like 2 different colors at the same time. So red and purple are both 2 very underserved decks that don't really have a lot going for them. They're not topping basically at all by themselves. It's just the combination of the color pool plus Law's effect that makes it good. So anything that they print that is good for, you know, the purple identity or the red identity is going to make Law way better. And instead of banning Law, why don't we just instead of banning all these, you know, problem cards that make red and purple, you know, better, you know, things like Bond Clay or I don't even know. I can't even name a good like red card, honestly. Like Rush Luffy, you know, just for an example. Why don't we just ban the leader at this point so other decks can shine in the future? If you guys are going to ban Sakazuki, you know, if Bandai wants to ban Sakazuki, then Law is definitely on the list to get banned, because he has the exact same drawbacks that Sakazuki had, maybe even worse in my opinion. So that is Red Purple Law. Let's go on to a character now that I think should get banned. This hurts my soul a little bit because I think this card is so fun because it's so busted, and obviously I have some good memories on it with Sakazuki, but Gecko Moria, guys. Gecko Moria has to go. I think there's a 50% chance that it gets banned, and let me tell you real quick, the only reason I think it won't get banned, the only reason it won't get banned is because it helps too many black decks be good. So like if this deck were to go, I think black is actually an abysmal color pool and doesn't actually do anything other than like abuse Gecko Moria. So that is the only reason I could see Gecko Moria staying, because Rebecca Hinaluchi, it is good, don't get me wrong, but it was only good because Sakazuki was so consistent at doing it. Like Rebecca Hinaluchi in other decks is just not as good. And also like black decks don't really rely on Rebecca Hinaluchi. Most people aren't even playing that in like any deck. People aren't even really playing that in anything other than just Lucci right now. You know, like Gecko doesn't really play like that whole combo really. At least not as consistently as they did. Like they play like Hina to do like the whole hard play Hina and then use Absalom to pop something and, you know, establish 2 characters, but they're not really doing like the whole Rebecca Hinaluchi thing. While they have access to it, it's not really their game plan, and it's not really something that they try to set up to do, because Gecko Moria is just a better card in general. So without Gecko Moria, I think black is kind of bad. So that is the only reason I think it won't get banned, which is why I'm giving it a 50% chance to get banned. But the first reason I think it will get banned is because it gets abused in every single black deck, and if black continues to be really good at just constantly removing things, then Gecko Moria obviously needs to get looked at for the prime candidate as to why they're so consistently good. Because the second reason that deck or that card could probably be banned is because it is a massively unfair tempo swing. So my Doflamingo players, my Boa Hancock players, you guys know as soon as Gecko comes out, you're like, fuck, like I could Red Rock it, but it doesn't take care of the 4 costs that they just established, and it doesn't take care of the 2 costs they established. It also doesn't hurt, it doesn't, negate the fact that even if I remove the Gecko Moria, they still probably like generated some type of advantage off the characters that Gecko Moria played, and I have to spend an entire turn if I'm not playing a removal deck, or like a heavy removal deck like Lucci or Gecko Moria, for example, to remove it. And then if I remove it, then I'm not actually doing anything else with my turn. So if they play Gecko and do like a value Gecko, they can play Kuzan, they can play Gecko, they can play like Brand New or like Spandam or something like that, a Spandime, right? They draw 2 cards essentially from that, and you still have to deal with Kuzan and Gecko. Or they can just play Gecko and then remove 2 characters off your board and establish 3 characters on the board. One probably isn't attacking with the 2 costs or less, and the other 2 definitely are if you leave them on the board. So it's just a massive tempo swing, and it puts a lot of decks that don't have access to like good removal or like good options after that in shambles, honestly. It's really hard to deal with Gecko Moria. And another reason is it generates up to 22 Dawn for 8 Dawn for now, right? So it could be even worse in the future, but look at things like Black Yellow Luffy, look at things like Rebecca, it's like Rebecca, Helbeppo, and then Rebecca gets back Spandine gets back Lucci, that's like 22 Dawn. Gecko Moria gets back 2 of the Little Brothers, and then the Little Brothers get two 5-cost characters, and then also boost your leader to 9k. So that is a total of 22 Dawn right there. And then I think it's 21 or 22 Dawn for the Lucci combo as well in Lucci. So it's just a lot of Dawn to be generated off one card on top of having like heavy access to like literally anything. I remember like I can't tell you guys how many times I've played Gecko in Sakazuki and brought back like a pudding and just like erase somebody's hand. And like it just really, really, really hurts a bunch of future card designs as well, because anything that is 4 cost or less is like going to have to be balanced around Gecko Moria, and that's a huge issue because any color pool that has black in it has access to Gecko Moria, and Gecko Moria has access to bring back anything of that color, right? So you can bring back a pudding, you can bring back a Kitten Killer, you can bring back Hiyori, right? Which with the 2 or less part of his effect, and then like stack your life. You can bring back like all of these cards, and it's really hard to balance because literally like almost every color has access to like black. Like almost every color combination has black in it, right? So like black is like a mixed color with like a bunch of different shit. So it's just really hard to balance. It's really hard to balance every card in the set to be balanced around Gecko Moria. So that's a huge issue for that. Like I said, I think this is about a 50% ban rate. And my next card that we're going to talk about, guys, it's actually a leader, and it's going to be controversial. So we'll talk about it. Anel. So right now, Anel is not in fact a completely broken deck. In fact, I don't think it is even one of the top 3 best decks in set 7 right now, but I think it's like 1 card away from being completely broken. And think of it like this, like if it has like some semblance of an early game, I think it actually is incredibly unfair. So if a card gets printed that Anel can use to like solidify itself in the early parts of the game, I don't think you can actually beat the deck anymore. So like, for example, we have Gadatsu, right? Gadatsu's really good at like controlling the early parts of the game. Even something as much as like Rush Ace, the 5 cost 7k ace when you have 2 or less life, you can gain Rush. That is actually good at controlling like the late early portions of the game. But if we get another option similar to like Gadatsu, like some type of removal or some type of card that can stick to the board and contest the board so you can't actually run over Anel, like in the early parts of the game, because that's how Anel loses. Anel loses to aggro or like heavy removal plus resource recursion. So like for example, when Anel was really good in set 5, we played Kaido because Kaido was able to establish a big body, draw 4 cards, and be able to, you know, get us back our removal cards to be able to, you know, contest their bodies. But now, because Anel has access to Gedatsu, they have access to Rush Ace, 10 cost and 5 cost. They also have access to Raigo as well. There's no big character in the game that they can't kill that, you know, can contest their bodies, right? So for example, if you drop a 9 cost Zoro, they can just Raigo it. If you drop a 10 cost Kaido, they can Raigo it. And while they're not establishing a big body while they do that, like they can heal so much and they're so safe at 1 life that even them using a pseudo Red Rock doesn't actually do anything, because that color, like when they're at 1 life, they're technically at 3 life. So you can't like kill them essentially. So they're not exactly punished for using the Raigo, because they can just heal the next turn and then also either gain Rush with Ace or pop something with Yamato depending on how much life that they have. So it's just really hard to punish the deck. So the deck is 1 card away, I think, from being completely broken. And another thing too is it's really hard to balance, like I said, a common thing. It's really hard to balance leaders like this, because like, you know, any good yellow support is going to be heavily abused in Anel, because Anel is actually just the better yellow deck. Like it was Katakuri for a long time, because swinging for 7k is actually really powerful, but the survivability of Anel makes it better than Big Mom now, because the best thing about Katakuri was Katakuri's top end was the best. But now that is no longer the case, because Anel has better top end. They have Yamato, they have Katakuri, and they have 10 cost Ace. So even Big Mom, like you can't kill Anel anymore, because they'll just heal past the Big Mom trash. And like, because they can infinitely recur life on top of any triggers that they have, can like stop you from winning that turn. And then if they stop you from winning 1 turn, and then they play another Ace or Yamato or a Katakuri, they go back to 1, maybe even 2 life. And then obviously you have to attack them 3 or 4 times to even connect, on top of if they trigger anything like Beige, or You're the One Who Should Disappear, or Onami, or Raigo or something like that. You can actually win the game from that point. On top of just having counter, right? Like just having counter is really important. This deck is incredibly punishing, because it punishes you for trying to win the game. It punishes you for attacking into their life, because if you leave them at 1 life, they can just heal off Yamato or Ace. I'm sorry. And then if you leave them at like 2 or 3 life, they can just like heal off of Ace and then beat you down with big characters. On top of Yamato, while Yamato can't heal if they're at, you know, multiple, you know, higher life counts, they actually can just like pop things. Like Yamato, if you guys both starve each other and like they leave you at 5 life and you leave them at 4 life, Yamato can pop a 9 cost on turn 4, dude. So it goes like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Actually, so on turn 5, they can pop a 9 cost. They can pop Zoro, a 9 cost Zoro. They can pop like a Gecko Moria. They can pop 8 cost Kid. It's really tough to actually beat Anel sometimes, because their color pool is so good and they have access to every type of mechanic in the game. They have access to Rush. They have access to removal. They have access to healing. They have access to triggers. They have access to big bodies. Like it's really tough to actually beat Anel sometimes, and I think there's a 10% chance this leader can get banned in the future. However, if they do print some early game support to make Anel a little bit better, I think there's probably like a 40% chance that Anel does get banned in the future, but we'll have to see how the meta is shaping up. But that is it, guys. Thanks so much for watching the video. I will see you guys on my next one, and peace.